Here's my advice for fraction exponents. These are technically called rational exponents. Okay, so back to this part right here. Would you please put power? That's still the power. You go 8 to the 4th. But first, you do this, which is the root. Okay, when you were taught square roots, they didn't tell you at that time that there was any other kind of root. So square roots would have a 2 there. A 3 makes it called a cube root. Let me tell you the difference. You all know what this means, right? Square root of 25. What's the answer to square root of 25? 5. Because why? Because 5 times 5 makes 25. All right, let's just practice that a little bit. What's the square root of 36? 6. What's the square root of 81? But wait, I'm going to make it be a fraction power because that's the power. It's 81 to the first power, but that's just 81. That's the root. And that means a 2 root, which means a square root. So when I said square root of 81 in words, I wrote to the power of 1/2. Power of 1/2. So that means square root of 81, which is 9. Do you get that? So if I wanted to say square root of 25, I have two choices. I can say square root of 25 like that, or I can say 25 to the 1/2 power. That means the same thing as a square root. This is really critical. Are you getting that this root right there is the same as putting a power of 1/2? Okay. Learning. It's important. Now, let's go to third roots. What in the world is a third root of 8? Instead of something times something, it's something times something times something. It's 3 things. Can anybody do this one in your head? 2. Because why? Because 2 times 2 times 2 makes 8. So the answer to this is a 2. Cube root of 8 is 2. Could they have written it as 8 to the 1/3? Yeah, that's the whole point. Trying to show you that cube root like this means that. What is a cube root of 8? It's 2. All right. We're like almost halfway done. If you actually understood that stuff I just told you, that when you've got a fraction part, that this is the power and this is the root. If you get that, you're like halfway there. All right, so what's a typical problem involving this? Well, let's say I had 25 squared equals 5 to the 2x. Do you remember yesterday when we would have said, I wish they both were a 5? Remember how we wanted the bases to be the same? Remember that from yesterday? So how could I make a 25 into a 5? Well, you can't just make it a 5. 25 can be 5 squared, though. And then there's still this squared on it. And I just made the bases the same. And then this equals this. 2 times 2 is 4 equals 2x. And I know you could all solve that from there and get 5 by 2 on both sides, and you could easily get the answer. Okay, so that's yesterday. How is that like today? Well, what if I said 8 equals 2 to the x? I could rewrite the 8 as a 2 to the something. Would you agree that 8 is 2 to the 3rd? Does that make sense to you? Then 2 is the 3rd root of 8. Do you get that? Do you agree that 2 to the 3rd is 8? Do you get that? Yeah. Okay, so all I did is replace an 8 with the 2 to the 3rd. So I just replaced an 8 with something that's equal to an 8. And then the reason I did it is because then the bases are the same. So then this equals this. But the thing that's what we did yesterday. So what are we doing today? You have to know when I say cube root of 8, you have to know what the heck to do. So here's cube root of 8. That's one way to say it. Here's another way to say it. Either way, it's cube root of 8. What's it equal to? What is a cube root of 8? We just talked about this. What's the cube root of 8? 2. I'm going to stay here for just a sec so I can figure out what's on your paper there. All right. So I want you to try these cube roots. Cube root of 1, which is the same as 1 to the 1/3 power. I want the cube root of 8. We just said it. If you've been taking notes, you got that one. Cube root of 125. So that's 125 to the 1/3 power. This is 8 to the 1/3 power. And what are those answers? What are cube roots? Try to answer those 3 questions. I'm going to pause for a second while you do that. So the first one is 1. Why? Because 1 times 1 times 1 makes 1. How about if you root 8? You practice it 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 makes 8. That's the third root of 8 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 makes 8. And how about the root of 25? What root? The third root. See, there's a 3 there. The third root of 25. 5 times 5 times 5 is your hint. So what's the answer? 5. Because 5 times 5 is 25, and then you do 25 times 5, and you get 125. Those are cube roots. Okay. When would you ever use this? If you had this, x to the 3rd power was equal to 8, you would solve it by doing this. You would use a fraction power, just like I was just talking about. You use a fraction power. So I'd use a 1/3 right here. And you have to go, oh, I know that one. That's the third root of 8. And the answer is 2. So you get how you might use that? Because these canceled each other. You know what 3 times 1/3 is? 3 times 1/3 is 1. So this is just x to the 1 equals third root of 8, 2. So what else would I expect you to know the third root of? There's only one more that we use a lot. And that's 64. Third root of 64. And I want you to be able to do it on a calculator too. So if I want the third root of 64, it could look like this, or it could look like this. Do you get that both of those are third root? Anybody know it just by being smart? Well, is it 2 times 2 times 2? No. It's not 3 times 3 times 3. That's, ooh. 4 times 4 times 4. Okay. When would you ever put something to the 1/3 power like that? There's a lot of ways. Let's actually go look at your worksheet and we'll start it together. We'll do some worksheet problems together right now. So everybody find the worksheet that's posted for today. I think it's there. Isn't it there and open? Please tell me it is.
It's the rational roots.
That's the one. Rational roots. Yep. Could you read me number 1? Jack S. No problem. It's called rational roots, right?
I can read you number 1.
That'd be nice.
The square root. Wait, there's a 4. I don't know how to say it.
Oh, is it like this?
Yeah.
That's the 4th root. That's how you say that.
4th root.
Of?
B.
Ooh. And that's all it says?
Yep.
Well, then tell me the directions. What am I supposed to do?
Okay. It says write using a fraction or whole number x.
Aha. I practiced this with you. It's b to a fraction power. That's the whole point, right? What is it? b to the 1/4. Remember that the roots are on the bottom. I have a saying, it's kind of dumb. Would you agree that if you grab a plant, the roots are on the bottom? When you grabbed your plant, the roots on the bottom, just like in a plant. Top of the plant isn't the roots, right? The roots are on the bottom. So if you're ever like, I don't know where to put the root, it goes on the bottom of the fraction. That's it. B to the 1/4. That's your answer. Okay. Could you read me number 2, Megan?
5 in front of
So how do I say it? What root?
the fifth root,
Fifth root of?
D to the 7th.
Ooh, to the 7th? Ooh, got more tricky. Well, then I'll give you this hint. I bet your D looks different too, right? It looks like a lowercase d like this. Then it's D to the roots on the bottom, just like in plants. Which is the root? The 5 or the 7? Which one's the root?
5.
The 5. So the 5 goes on the bottom. And then where do you think you put the 7?
On top.
Yes. This is a really good example one. If you need one in your notes for later, like how to do this, the root part here, that goes on the bottom. The other number goes on the top. Avia. Would you read me number 3?
Yep. It's 1 over the square root of t to the 3rd.
Okay. And that's the last melon, the last thing I have to teach you, and we're going to go to lunch soon. And that's if you put 1 over something, did you know that that just made the exponent negative? It's t to the negative fraction power. And this is a square root, so I can put a 2 there. If there is no other root, it's a 2 there. The standard is the square root. Okay, so here's the problem. So here's your answers. The answers are circled, right?
No.
All right, so I will grade this and I'll add the points to your score. Did you put your name at the top? And then put your power on there too? Okay, we'll talk that through together tomorrow in class, last 10 minutes. So we'll try to figure out a fair score for you. All right, Debbie. Have a great day.
Wait, so it would be negative 1 over 2.
It's negative, not 1 over 2.
1 over 3.
Where's the 3 go? 3's got to go somewhere.
I mean, yes.
Okay, so which part's the root? Because the root will go on the bottom. What part's the root? The 2 or the 3? The 2. And then the 3 needs to go somewhere. Well, there's only one spot left. The top. What's this 1 over mean? The 1 over here? That's the negative. If you put 1 over something, that means negative power. This is complicated powers. Why can't it just be like the old days? Well, you're getting older. You already had regular powers in regular algebra. We're in algebra 2. We got to learn fraction powers. Can you read me the next one, Grace? Or do you have a question?
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
How did it become negative again?
Because we had 1 over it. If there's ever 1 over something, then you got to make the power negative.
It's like when we flip the...
Yeah.
You're bringing a number above. Or
Mm-hmm. It's like that, yeah. The negative, it's unhappy where it is. It goes to the bottom. And then, it's hiding down here now where it's happier. It didn't like being on the top. All right, so let me give you one last one to see if you really get this. What if I put 27 to the negative hint? What does that mean? We just talked about it. A negative power makes it what?
1.
1 over, yeah. And then I'm going to say 2/3. Okay, who can tell me what the heck that 3 is? Root.
Let's use the root.
And this 2 is the normal. I mean, these are powers, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the normal power. And that there means there's 1 over it. So,
It's 1 over.
here's the answer. It's 1 over the cube root of 27. Can anybody do that in their head? The 3rd root of 27.
9.
Nope, 9 times 9 times 9 is not 27.
It's
3. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So it's 3, but then you got to power it to the 2. 1 over 3, but powered to the 2. What is 3 to the power of 2? 9. So my final answer to the question I gave you would have been 1/9. All right, negatives make it 1 over. That's the root part, and that part's the power part. And unless I'm wrong, in which case I'll just be wrong. All right, so when you last left, we were talking about complicated powers. There's 3 parts. 3 parts to these powers. It used to just mean you'd square it. Now it means you'd square it, you'd third root it, and you'd flip it with a negative in the front. Makes it flip upside down. So let's start. Kennedy, can you shut that door back there? Lunch people a little loud. So there are 3 parts to this. A is to a fraction power, but there can be a negative in front of it. Try this one. If you just follow along, do 2, 3 more questions with me, you'll have this. So there's a 4 and there's a 5 and then there's something else. The power can be negative. Is this one of the ones where the power is negative? See that 1 over on top? Then yes, negative. And then that 4, is that the root or is that the power? That 4 is the root. It's on the root, see? That 4 is the root. That 5 is a normal power. See how it's a normal power on the A? So that 5 is a normal power. That's how you do it. 3 parts. Negative means the whole thing has a 1 over. You catching that? That this negative is for that part. The 4 is the root because the roots go on the bottom just like in plants, and that's the root. And then that 5 here, I'll do a green line. That 5 comes from there. And that 5 is the normal power. All right, now let's teach you how to put it in the calculator because, man, that'll be really handy on a test. Let's say we had to do this one where I told you already what the answer was. It was 1/9, but we'll do it this way. If you wanted to put that in a calculator, which, again, calculators are allowed, you'd want to know how to put it in a calculator, right? Take your iPad's calculator, open it up to your iPad's calculator, and you're going to go 27, and then I think most of the iPad wants you to put X to the N as the power button. Is that right? Is that the button you got to push? Okay. 27 and then the power button, and then you've got to put in a parenthesis, -2 divided by 3 parentheses. I'm putting the parentheses in big, like the parentheses key and the other parentheses key. If you put it in just like that, you should get -9. No, not -9, wrong server. You get 1/9. And 1/9 is a decimal, so I would have taken it on the test as 0.11111 repeating. Did you get 0.11111? If you did it right, then you know how to put it in your calculator. And that's really, really important. I really don't think it'll work without the parentheses, because your calculator won't know you mean 2/3. It'll think you mean you want to put it to the -2 power and then do something else. So
It does work without the parentheses.
okay, as long as it stays up in the power, which it could. All right. Well, that's awesome. That means your calculators have gotten smarter over time. In the old days, you had to put in parentheses or the calculator wouldn't do it right. So that's good. All right, let's start the worksheet together if we haven't already. Yes.
Can we do one of these problems?
Yeah. Find the worksheet. And you're doing number 1?
We already did
Oh.
1 through 3.
1 through 3? Just give me 4.
I have 4 is 8.
8?
4 to the 4.
8? Did you say? Or
Yeah.
A? Okay, 8.
Yeah. And then 4.
8, 4.
To the power.
Sorry, to the power of.
Okay, 8 to the power of 4. All right.
4/3.
Yeah.
4/3.
Thank you.
8 to the power of 4/3. That's how you'd say that.
Okay.
All right. Now, what part of that is the root?
The, yeah.
The roots are on the bottom, just like in plants. The root part is the bottom. I know you could use a calculator, but can't you just do the third root of 8 and get 2 in your head? Yeah, that part's pretty easy. And then you just need to do 2 to the 4th, because that's the power. And 8 to the 1/3 power is 2. And then you go 2 to the 4th. That you might want a calculator for. 2 power of 4. What'd you get? 16 is correct. 2 to the 4th is 16. So if you put that all in properly, 8 to the power of 4/3, you would get 16. Now, some of you, oh, that cell phone needs to go in the backpack right now, not in your pocket. Backpack, because otherwise you'll just take it out again. And some of you, I know, are thinking, oh, sweet, I'll just use my calculator and I'll be good. Well, there's problems on the test you can't do with the calculator because they have a variable in them. Okay, so don't just trust that everything's going to be fine. I don't have to really understand this at all. I'm just going to type it in the calculator, because what if I say a to the 4/3? Are you going to be able to put that in the calculator? No. So here's what you would be able to do. You go a, and then you do the third root, and then you put it to the 4th. And by the way, that 4th, I don't know if they'll ever do this, but you could put it up there as a power on the whole thing. It's a normal power, so it can go anywhere. It can go on the top, or it can go on like right here, or it could go right here. But that root part, the roots always go on the bottom. So don't get a misconception that, oh, it's easy, I just use the calculator. Because if there's a variable, you can't. All right, would you read me number 5?
16 to the power of
Yep.
3/2.
Excellent. Now, the square root of 16. You can do that. Square root of 16.
It's
Plus 2.
Square root of 16 is not half of 16. It's the square root. It's like what times what makes 16? It's 4. And then I might use the calculator, but I happen to have memorized 4 to the 3rd. I did say it earlier. 4 to the 3rd? 64 is right. See, you don't have to use the calculator, but you'll be allowed to. So you better know how to use the calculator. One rule. When we start the test, it's not like it's tomorrow or anything, but when we start the test, you can't come up to me and say, how do I do this? You can't do that. It's a test. You can ask me that today.
Wait, the test is tomorrow.
No, I didn't say the test is tomorrow. I'm saying that when you take the test, kids often are like, but I don't know how to put it in. Well, then you don't know how to do it. Okay, so if you want to learn how to do it, you could ask me that today. You could ask me that tomorrow. But you can't ask me how to put it in the calculator on the test. You need to know that before the test. Grace.
So I'm like still kind of confused on like how you use the calculator.
Okay, so type in 16. And then if you have a caret button, you could use that for power, but you probably don't. You probably have, I've noticed most of the iPads use X to the N as their, hey, you want to put it to a power button? Okay. Then we got to put in 3/2. You have to put it in parentheses. If you tried it without the parentheses, I don't want it. Somebody said it would work. I don't want to promise that. But I personally just put it in parentheses and I know it's going to work.
How do you
Does that make sense, Grace?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know how to do it
How do you do it
without the calculator, but how do you do it
without
without, yeah, without the calculator?
Yeah.
Okay. So just let's finish this. And what was the answer to that? Did you put in 16 to the 3/2 yet?
Well, yeah, I put it in, I got, 64.
Got 64. Okay, so now I'll talk you through what happened again. What was this part again? The 2. The root. What's the 2 root, also known as the square root of 16? What's the square root of 16? 4. 4 to the 3rd is 64. See what happened there? We did the square root of 16, and the square root of 16 was 4. Then we put it to the 3rd. 4 to the 3rd, 64. All right, let's do number 6. I can tell you aren't all like out of the woods yet. Ian, would you read me number 6?
4 to the power of 5
Over 2.
over 2.
Thank you. You could have said that 5/2 or 5/2. Okay, and now the root's on the bottom. Can you do this 2 root, also known as the square root of 4, Ian? What's the square root of 4? 2. And then, if you want, you could just use the calculator for the last part. 2 to the 5th. And I could do it in my head, but I'm a math teacher, so I know a lot of people can't. You just go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And am I going to tell the answer? 32.
Can we do number 12?
All right, 1, 2, skip a few, and she's on to number 12. Read me number 12.
Well, I'm not. I just.
Okay, you just are scared of it. I know, that's fine. So tell me number 12.
Parenthesis.
Uh-huh.
16. Oh, to the power.
To the power of your...
No, wait, no.
No, it's in the parentheses.
It's in the parentheses.
The power is in the parentheses.
Okay, got it. 16. Go ahead.
1/3.
So 16 to the power of 1/3. That's how you'd say that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then?
To the power.
Sorry, but in the
Close the
parentheses,
parentheses.
in the parentheses.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Parenthesis
then you do
to the...
9/4.
To
To the-
the power.
Say it
To
right.
the power of 9/4.
There you go.
Sorry.
Good. If I have to do it, you have to at least be able to say it. Okay. Okay. Now, this right here, that part, you can multiply. And I personally would multiply that out with my calculator, and I'd have 9/12. But I bet you some kids could reduce that in their head. It's 16 to the 9/12. Okay. Now, could you reduce that? Could you reduce 9/12?
Sorry.
Is there something wrong or? Okay. All right. Okay. So 9/12, you can reduce it with a calculator. If you know how, you can just reduce 9/12 by going like this. 9/12 is really 3 times 3 over 3 times 4, and the cool part is then it's 3/4. So that's really 16 to the 3/4 power. And from there, couldn't you use a calculator to get it? I bet you can. From there, if you're going to make me do that, I feel like you're just abusing me. So you can do that with the calculator. Okay. If you had to, you could do the 4th root of 16, and it comes out to 2, and then you could do the rest. But I'll give you that hint. Okay, so the rest of the worksheet is yours. If you want to come up and ask me individual questions, you can. I know this was not easy. I get it. These are weird. You've never had a fraction exponent, and especially a negative fraction exponent. Holy crap. So it just got harder, no doubt. But you were in higher algebra, so we got to have those basics down already. And if you don't, it's especially going to be really hard.